it's time for the final component of this unit's exploration, which is how do you create your own custom scene to be able to actually create your full unique soundscape detached from the materials that we provided you. I'd love to see you in this section create at least one scene that's full of all your own creations visually, plus all of your own sound injections, so that I can see how you fully envision a space of sound without any prior influence or ideas. So, how is it that we make a scene and how do we connect it to the other components in our code? Well, let me show you. Head to your Scenes folder and right-click and create a new scene. Here it is on my screen. And when I do so, I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call mine the empty void because I'm not going to spend too much time creating this right now. And if I double click on it, I end up in this empty void of space. And so what is it that I want to do here? Well, I want to right click and maybe just make let's make a plane, a simple plane. And I'm going to actually look over at my transform and just make sure it's set to 0, 0, 0. So it's at the kind of the origin point of this world. The next thing that I'm going to want to do is actually make sure that I have a player that's able to move around in this scene, because otherwise, when I load the scene, nothing much is going to happen. There's not going to be anything available to happen. So I'm going to go to the prefabs folder where I already have a prefabricated player character that I can drop in and place in this scene. And you should see that the player comes already with a body, a sphere, and a camera, and that the body itself actually has inside of it the different components that make it up, these eyeballs, and that the player has the player controller and the character controller. This should all come prepackaged, but maybe just double check just to make sure it's all there. And if I press run on this scene, I should be able to see that I'm able to move this around on this platform. Awesome. And jump, but you might notice that there's no jumping sound. Well, that's because the player prefab doesn't actually have a sound attached for its jump. So feel free to customize a different jump for different scenes. Notice I don't have an audio source attached to this, so if I want one, quickly make an audio source. Here we go. And I'm going to find maybe a sound for this, an audio clip. I'll get my normal jump here, and I'm going to turn off play on awake just so it only plays and attach it to my audio source. Wonderful. So if I want that sound to be consistent, boing, I can put that over here now. Boing. So this level's very bare bones. That's okay. You can make yours pretty simple as well. I'm looking for examples of sound primarily in this section. And so this character is now here. So how do I actually get my game to take me to this scene when I, for example, start in the hub? Well, that's what we're going to figure out right here. So what I'm going to do is back in my hub, I'm going to head into my scene, and what I'm actually going to do is just build something really simple. You can make yours much more sophisticated than this, but I'm going to make this little cube that is going to end up being my teleport object for that new level that I'm working on. So I'm just going to pull it over here. It's kind of this innocent object sitting right down in the world here, kind of hovering maybe a bit above the ground, kind of this mysterious thing taking me to the void. Maybe I'll change its color. How do we change something's color? Well, if I go to materials, you'll see I already have some like dark materials here. I can do so, or I can right click and I can create a material in which I can go, maybe I'll call this the void matte. And I'll take a look here. I'm going to crank this to the darkest setting, and maybe I want to make it look really metallic, crank this up a lot, and apply it to this. So this looks a lot more void-like, maybe a little shimmery. Cool, I'm liking how that looks. Awesome. So now that this new cube exists, I notice that I already have a box collider attached to this, but one thing that I can do here is I can actually make this a trigger, which is what's going to allow this box collider to be triggered like that proximity detector. Now if I choose the resizer, you'll see that I can actually make this collider bigger than the box itself, which means that I don't actually have to touch that box directly to trigger it. I can just step into this zone that I'm creating for that trigger to occur. Maybe you want the box to be touched directly. Maybe you want it to be tighter. That's up to you. I'm going to create mine kind of a nice little tight box around this box that's sufficient to touch to trigger the response. Awesome. So now that's set in place. The next thing I need to do is head over to my scripts. And there's a script provided called the scene swap. I'm going to click and drag this into my onto my object here. And this script, if we take a quick peek at it, what it's doing is actually trying to process, once it loads here, let's give it a sec. Once it's been triggered, if it's the player that's triggered it, it's going to actually access the scene manager and load a certain level. This is already built for us, for the coding-minded students. Here's kind of some insight into how to manage levels in Unity. For those who don't know much about code, feel free to just use the tool as I show you here. The only thing we actually have to do is tell it which level to teleport us to. So how do we know what this level is? Well, if we head up to File and go to Build Settings, at the top we'll see the scenes in our build. The names of them on the left and the numbers of them are on the right. But I noticed something immediately. Hub, Tower, Sky Level, Forest, Moon, House. My level for the void, empty void, is not present in this list. Whenever I make a new level, I actually have to manually add it into this list for it to be a part of the scenes in our game. Now that I've dragged it into this menu, it's labeled as number 6, meaning if I go back to this object and click level 6, place it in here, technically this should be enough to be able to teleport me to that new level. Boing. Let's just play this here. Boing. Get through the intro experience once again. A beautiful door opening. All right. And here we go. And let's get close to this. And as we touch it, bam, we're teleported to our new world. But now we're stranded. Boing. What do? We're stuck. Not a problem. If I head to my empty void, saving before I go, let's remember that, and head over here, what if I were to simply create another cube in here that maybe this time will, for like the sake of being thematic, I'll leave kind of white, and maybe, actually maybe let's go to my materials. I'm going to create a new material that I'm going to call back to world material, and I'm going to give this a nice pure white color, but let's also make this metallic as well. I like to give it kind of this shiny shimmeringness. Is it going to make it look that nice? Not really in here. I could maybe, enable, don't. Okay, well, let's not worry about this right now. It's being a little bit finicky to me. Let's leave this as it is. That's not important right now. I'm going to make sure that I trigger my collider. I make it bigger so that I have more of a range for the user to interact with. Let's see if I can see that green dot there. That's probably big enough for where this is located. Maybe I'll just make it thorough in case I move it around later. This little box around it, maybe a little bit narrower there. Wonderful. And now I can head to my use these scripts, attach my scene swap, and double check which scene is my hub. It's scene 0. Scene 0 is the one that's already placed in there. So now if I run this experience and I touch this, beautiful. I head right back to that main hub. You don't have to teleport the player back to the main hub, however. You could actually have the player teleport to a different scene. Or if you wanted to, within one level, let's say I go to my forest level. Right now, there is a go back to main map place. But why couldn't you put a teleport to the empty void? Why couldn't you put a teleport to the moon? Why couldn't you put one to the tower? You could actually put teleports to any given level anywhere you want, as you see fit, because you already have the script and the knowledge to do so now. So feel free to create those teleports and scene swaps wherever you want. I want to see you make at least one custom scene, but I'd love to see you make more. And see if you can't interweave your experiences in a more interesting and, I guess, meaningful, curious, creative manner that I've done so far in this example project. So now you know how to create new scenes, link them all together, and we've got plenty to add with audio. I'm going to show you a couple more tips in the next couple of videos just for project management ideas. But other than that, it's time for you to be creating and enjoying the process of building projects and designing sound-based experiences. See you in the next one.